Okay, so today we are going through the glute thrust. Now, I rate this exercise. I think it is such a good posterior change. So, in other words, an exercise for your glutes, your hamstrings, the posterior side of your body. But a lot of people do this wrong. Obviously, females love this exercise. Guys, I would strongly recommend you do it. I know maybe be a little bit weird with the eye contact with people when you're doing this as a guy, but I promise you it is a fantastic exercise. But as always, an exercise is only as good as your execution on it. So we're going to run through some of the fundamental mistakes in this movement, and we're going to start with just body weight. Because in my opinion, if you can't execute the movement with just body weight correctly, you have no business getting onto a barbell and loading yourself full of weight. You understand? So it's really important that you understand the basics of this exercise. You walk away from this video and you apply them consistently on a weekly, daily basis, however often you're doing this kind of movement. So let's start with some of the common mistakes. First, foot placement. A lot of people either put the feet too close, which will emphasize the quads. So if Odette came up for a glute thrust, her quads are doing a lot of the movements, and you can see the shin placement there. Another problem, they put the feet too far away. And then when Odette's coming up, we're now getting a lot of hamstring recruitment, but we do want it to predominantly be glute recruitment. So a good way to know that when your feet are in the right position, we're going to scoot them back. At the peak of the movement when we're contracted, we should have a nice 90-degree placement to the ground of the shin, nice vertical angle. That's going to help prioritize glute recruitment. Another very important thing to focus on is where your shoulders are sitting on the bench. A lot of people will tend to just balance maybe their neck on the bench, or they'll come right back and they've got, basically the whole upper torso on the bench. So basically, I've spoken before where the scapula are. If you're not sure, then just wing your arm like this. You can touch your scapula. The bottom of the scapula should be basically the point of contact at the bench. Okay, that's going to give you enough support, but also make sure there's enough movement in the hips in order to maximize this exercise. And now we're going to move on to the final major problem that we see with this exercise. People struggle to generate force with the glutes independently. What I mean by that is a lot of the time, people will allow their lower back to take over this movement. So when you see them come up in the glute thrust, they're forcing their lower back to take a lot of the load. They do not understand how to get the hips to work independently from the lower back. So a lot of girls, a lot of guys, they'll complain that they don't feel much glute and the lower back hurts off the exercise. That is because they are thrusting up and allowing the lower back to take over the exercise. As you can see from Odette here, her head is moving a lot. This would be incorrect movement. Her head is moving a lot. Her torso is moving a lot. And when she comes up at the top, this lower back is so arched that if I feel here, her lower back is nice and contracted, but her glutes are soft as hell. So obviously, if we're trying to recruit the glutes and the glutes are soft and the lower back is hard, that means the lower back is taking a lot of the load. So when we are setting up for a glute thrust, it's really important to understand that we need the head position and the upper torso to remain nice and still. Because if we're trying to tilt through this whole thing and it's all moving, then that's when the lower back is starting to take over a lot of the exercise. So I'm making sure that Odette's chin is slightly tucked in throughout this movement and her upper torso is nice and stable. All we're looking to do is drop at the hips and then extend through the hips. So we're really trying to focus on not recruiting this lower back as little as possible. And you'll see that when Odette's contracting now, her glutes are way harder and her lower back isn't so firm. Of course, the lower back is going to get recruited, but to a very small degree and a much smaller degree compared to the previous demonstration. So it's really important to understand that we need our pelvis to tilt forward and really contract the glutes without allowing the lower back. As you can see, you can anteriorly tilt your hips in order to contract the glutes. We really need to focus on being able to contract the glutes without the lower back getting involved. You'll see that when I am tilting my hips forward and contracting my glutes here, my lower back is pretty rounded and flat. But the problem is when I say the incorrect way is when I contract my glutes here, I can't even contract my glutes that well. That's why it's the incorrect form, but my lower back is really arched. So it's really important to understand what we need the pelvis to tilt independently of the lower back. So once you have all those correct positions, the foot placement, where your back's on the bench, and understanding that we're not trying to generate force in the lower back, then you can progress to a barbell. But don't progress to the barbell until you can do the fundamental correctly. So now Odette sets up nicely and correctly for this hip thrust. She's just dropping at the hips, like I said, maintaining a good strong position here, and she's just driving through the hips with minimal lower back recruitment. That's going to develop your glutes, that's going to develop your hamstrings optimally. Not using useless form, not thinking about the exercise and just going through the motion. So guys, think about the movements and really develop these muscles, optimally.